The arrival. The night was quiet, almost too quiet. The little town slept under a wide blanket of stars. A cool wind moved through the empty streets, carrying the smell of grass and old trees. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed safe. But then, the silence broke. A sharp, strange light cut across the sky, faster than any airplane, brighter than any shooting star. It burned through the clouds, glowing in colors no human I had ever seen before. People in the town woke from their sleep, rushing to windows and doors, pointing to the heavens with fear and wonder. Some shouted that it was a meteor, some whispered about the end of the world. But one young man did not shout. He only watched, his heart beating faster than ever before. His name was Daniel, an ordinary boy with an ordinary life. But tonight, nothing about his life would remain ordinary. The light slowed, it bent, it moved with purpose. It was not falling, it was landing. Daniel felt the ground tremble under his shoes. Dogs barked, alarms rang, but the strange object did not crash. It settled in the fields just outside the town, like a giant bird choosing its nest. Daniel's eyes widened. The craft was no metal machine like in movies. It looked alive, breathing, its skin shimmering like liquid silver. It pulsed with energy, glowing faintly in the darkness. He felt a pull, not from his feet, but from deep inside his chest. Something was calling him. Neighbors screamed and ran back into their homes, locking doors and shutting windows. But Daniel's feet moved forward, step by step, across the empty road, across the grass. His fear was real, but stronger than fear was the voice in his head. A whisper, soft but clear, "Come closer." When he reached the field, the craft opened. No sound of doors, no hiss of machines. The silver skin simply parted like water, forming an archway of light. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. From the glowing entrance, a figure stepped out. At first, he thought it was human. The shape was right, 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But as she moved into the moonlight, Daniel saw the truth. Her skin shimmered faint blue, almost like glass with light moving beneath. Her eyes were larger than human, glowing softly like stars. Her hair floated as if underwater, shining silver and white. She was not frightening, no claws, no teeth, no weapons. But she was not human either. She was something else, something beyond Earth. An alien, and yet strangely beautiful. Daniel froze, unable to move, unable to speak. The alien girl looked at him, and for a moment, he thought she was studying him like a scientist looks an insect. But then she smiled a slow, curious smile. It was a smile that carried no cruelty, only interest. She walked closer, every step light, silent, graceful. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, louder and louder. When she stopped, she was standing only a few feet away. Her eyes locked on his. He wanted to run, but his legs refused. He wanted to speak, but no words came. It was as if she had taken control of his body with only her gaze. Finally, she opened her mouth. Her voice was not like any human voice. It was soft, musical, layered, as if many voices spoke together in harmony. And yet, Daniel understood every word. Her first words were simple, but they cut through him like lightning. "You," she said, pointing directly at him. Her glowing finger hovered inches from his chest. "I came for you." The world around Daniel seemed to vanish. The night, the stars, the houses, the earth beneath his feet, all faded. Only her eyes remained, glowing brighter, pulling him into a universe unknown. The silence of the town returned, but this silence was heavier, darker. Daniel realized this was not chance, not a mistake. She had not landed here randomly. She had come with purpose, and he was that purpose. His throat tightened, words finally breaking free. "Me? Why me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. But before she could answer, the ground rumbled again. The craft behind her pulsed with brighter light. Strange symbols danced across its surface, alive and moving. The alien girl leaned closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "Because you are ordinary, she said, "and that makes you dangerous." Daniel's breath caught, his mind spinning with fear and confusion. Ordinary? Dangerous? He was just a boy and nobody, and yet this being from beyond the stars across the universe just to find him. The last thing he saw before the light swallowed him was her hand reaching out, not to harm him, but to claim him. And in that moment, Daniel knew one truth. His life was no longer his own. The night of peace had ended. The night of the test had begun. The test. Daniel opened his eyes, and the world was no longer the same. The field, the houses, the sky, all were gone. He stood in a place that felt endless, a sea of glowing symbols floating around him like fireflies. Each symbol pulsed with strange light, alive and whispering in a language too old for human tongues. The alien girl stood across from him, calm, almost patient. Her silver hair flowed as if caught in a wind he could not feel. Her glowing eyes locked onto his, unblinking, unshaking. "This is not a dream," she said, her voice carrying inside his head and outside it at the same time. "This is the first step, the test." Daniel tried to speak, but the words felt heavy. "What test?" he asked, his voice small. She tilted her head, as if surprised he even needed to ask. "To see if your kind deserves survival," she answered. "To see if humanity is worthy of what comes next." Daniel's chest tightened. "What comes next?" he whispered. Her smile returned, soft but strange. "War," she said, "a war that has already begun, beyond your sky." Before Daniel could understand, the symbols around them exploded into visions. He saw burning worlds, skies full of black ships, oceans boiling under fire. He saw alien armies marching like endless shadows. He saw entire planets vanish in light, as if they were only sparks blown out by a careless hand. Daniel staggered, clutching his head, but the visions did not stop. Through all of it, one sound echoed, the sound of screams, human screams, his own people crying for help, begging for mercy. But the sky gave them none. The alien girl raised her hand, and the visions stopped. The silence hit harder than the chaos. "You feel it now," she said, her voice sharp, the small taste of what is coming. Daniel's breath shook, his knees weak. "Why me?" he asked again, desperate. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not a leader. I'm nobody." Her eyes softened, but only for a moment. "Exactly," she said. "Ordinary humans are unpredictable. They bend where others break. They fight when others surrender." She stepped closer, her presence cold and warm at the same time. "You will face trials, choices that are not fair, choices that are not safe." Her voice lowered, almost like a secret, "and how you choose will speak for all of your kind." Daniel swallowed hard. "So if I fail, then what?" The glow around her darkened, her face unreadable. "Then your world fails with you," she whispered. A sudden shift in the endless space began. The ground cracked under his feet, splitting like broken glass. Through the cracks, scenes of his own town appeared. His home, his school, the faces of people he knew. But they were wrong, all wrong. Some burned, some cried, some begged for his help. Every scene twisted into a nightmare. The alien girl spread her arms. "Choose," she said, her voice echoing. Daniel turned. Every direction filled with impossible choices. On one side, a child screamed as flames closed in. On another, his best friend stood surrounded by shadowy figures. On another, strangers he had never met cried for help. He could only run to one. He could only save one. Daniel's chest heaved, sweat on his skin, his heart pounding. "This isn't real," he shouted. But her voice cut through him, sharp and cold. "Your heart does not know the difference." He moved, running, stumbling, reaching. When he touched the first vision, the others vanished in smoke. The child was safe, but his best friend's screams faded into silence. Daniel dropped to his knees, guilt stabbing deep into his chest. He looked up at her, his voice breaking. "I couldn't save them all." The alien girl studied him with unreadable eyes. "No human ever can," she said. Her words carried no comfort, no kindness, only truth. Then, for the first time, her expression changed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Yet you still tried, she whispered, almost to herself. Daniel raised his head, anger sparking in his eyes. If this is your test, if this is your game, then fine, he said, his voice trembling but firm. But don't think I'll stop trying. Don't think I'll give up. The alien girl's smile faded, her gaze sharp. Something in her eyes shifted, a flicker of emotion she tried to hide. She turned away, her voice soft, almost uneasy. This was only the beginning, she said. Her hand lifted, and the endless space began to dissolve. The glowing symbols fell like ash, the ground vanished, and the visions of fire and screams faded into dark. The last thing Daniel heard before the world returned was her voice. Low, quiet, but filled with something strange, something almost human. You may survive, Daniel, she whispered, but can you make me believe? And then the lights swallowed him again, pulling him back into a reality that no longer felt like home. Alien secrets, Daniel gasped as air rushed back into his lungs. The field returned beneath his feet, the cold night wind touching his face again. The stars above still shone, but they no longer looked the same. The world he had always known now felt like a fragile dream. The alien girl stood only a few steps away, silent, watching him, her glowing eyes no longer sharp with command, but softer, searching. Daniel opened his mouth, his voice hoarse. You showed me death, you showed me fear, but why? She tilted her head, the silver strands of her hair moving as if in invisible water. I showed you truth, she said, her words calm. The truth of what is waiting beyond your sky. Her voice lowered, almost whispering. And the truth of who I am. Daniel frowned, confused. She took one step closer. You think I came to test you only, she said. But in truth, you test me as well. Before Daniel could reply, her hand lifted. The air shimmered like broken glass, and then the world split open. Colors and lights Daniel had never seen poured into his eyes. It was not Earth anymore. It was her world. He stood at the edge of a great city, towers of crystal rising like frozen lightning. The sky burned in shades of violet and gold, two suns hanging over the horizon. Strange creatures moved in the streets below, tall, thin beings of light and shadow. They did not smile, they did not laugh. They only walked with faces carved from stone. The alien girl's voice echoed beside him, though she did not move her lips. My people are strong, Daniel, stronger than you can imagine. He saw soldiers lined in perfect rows, armor gleaming, eyes empty. Ships rose into the sky, sharp and endless. They conquer, they build, they rule, she said, but they do not feel, they do not dream, they do not love. Daniel turned to look at her. Her glowing eyes seemed brighter here, as if the city itself fed her strength. But you, he whispered, you're different. For the first time, she looked away. Her voice softened, carrying a sadness that did not belong to a conqueror. I was born different, yes, cursed with a heart that feels what others cannot. Her hand touched her chest, faint light pulsing beneath her skin. In my world, feelings are weakness, and weakness is death. Daniel's throat tightened. So why come here? Why Earth? She looked at him again, her gaze sharp but trembling at the edges. Because your kind feels too much, she said. You love your pets, your machines, even your enemies sometimes. She stepped closer. That is your power, Daniel, a power we do not have, a power we cannot control. Daniel shook his head, struggling to understand. You came to test if we deserve to live, he said. No, she corrected softly. I came to see if I deserve to choose you. The words struck him harder than the visions of fire and death. She choosing him? What did that mean? Before he could ask, the city around them shifted. Now he saw her people in war, entire fleets burning across black skies. He saw her standing among them, her face calm while her eyes carried storms. He saw her hiding her heart, pretending to be like them, cold and empty. But deep inside, She longed for something more. Daniel felt the truth, not just in sight, but in his bones. She was not only here to test him. She was here because she wanted to believe in something else, something her people never could. The vision cracked, fading back into the night field. Daniel stumbled, breathing heavy, his mind spinning with questions. The alien girl stood close now, her face unreadable. But her eyes, those glowing eyes, told him enough. She was not only the judge, she was also the prisoner. Daniel's voice was low, almost a whisper. "You're afraid," he said. Her body stilled, her eyes flickered. "I am not afraid," she replied, but her voice betrayed her. "You are," Daniel said, stronger now. "You're afraid your people are wrong, afraid that maybe we're right." For a moment, silence stretched between them. The wind carried the sound of distant dogs barking. The only sign the world was still normal. Then she leaned closer, her voice a thin thread of sound. "If I admit you are right," she said, "then everything I am breaks apart." Daniel's heart pounded. "Then let it break," he whispered. Her eyes widened slightly, the faintest crack in her perfect mask. She turned her head away, her voice sharp again. "Do not confuse my weakness for kindness. Daniel, this test is not over." But her words did not erase the flicker of humanity he had seen inside her. The girl from the stars was not as unshakable as she wanted him to believe. And Daniel realized, with a mix of fear and strange hope, that maybe the test was not only about humanity. Maybe it was also about her. The challenge. The night field was silent again, but Daniel knew it would not last. The alien girl stood tall, her eyes locked on him with a strange fire. "You have seen my world," she said, her voice cold and strong. "You have felt my truth, but words and visions are not enough." She raised her hand, the air rippling like water around her fingers. "Now you face the challenge." Before Daniel could speak, the ground vanished beneath his feet. He fell into darkness, his body weightless, his heart pounding. When the darkness cleared, he stood inside a vast arena. Stone walls rose high around him, glowing symbols carved into their surfaces. The air was heavy, filled with the scent of ash and metal. Daniel turned in circles, panic sharp in his chest. "This isn't real," he whispered, but the stone floor beneath his hands felt solid. The heat in the air burned his lungs. It was real enough to hurt. A voice thundered through the arena. Her voice. "This is not a dream, Daniel. This is the first trial." The gates at the far end of the arena opened with a loud roar. From the shadows, shapes crawled out, dark creatures with long arms, glowing teeth, and empty eyes. They moved like wolves, but their bodies twisted like smoke. Daniel's chest tightened. He had no weapons, no armor, nothing but his bare hands. The alien girl's voice echoed above. "Fight or fall. Show me what your kind does when there is no hope." Daniel stumbled back, fear clawing at him. The creatures hissed, circling, their glowing teeth snapping in the air. He picked up a broken stone from the ground, holding it like a blade. His heart screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to run. He swung the stone as the first creature lunged, the sound of impact cracking through the arena. The shadow beast burst apart into smoke, vanishing with a shriek. But three more rushed forward, faster, hungrier. Daniel fought, striking, dodging, barely standing. Each beast dissolved when struck, but each left behind cuts, bruises, and blood on his skin. His arms ached, his breath came ragged. Still, he refused to stop. With each fall, he forced himself up again. With each strike, he shouted through gritted teeth, "I won't die here." Finally, the last creature fell into smoke, leaving silence in the arena. Daniel dropped to his knees, shaking, the stones slipping from his hand. The alien girl appeared above him, her face unreadable. "You survived," she said, her tone almost impressed. "But survival is not enough." The arena shifted, melting like wax. When the world formed again, Daniel was no longer alone. He stood in a burning street, flames rising on both sides. Three figures cried for help, a child trapped under rubble, a wounded soldier bleeding out, and a stranger locked behind a wall of fire. The alien girl's voice filled the air. Your second trial. You cannot save them all. Daniel, choose. Daniel's throat tightened, sweat running down his face. The fire roared louder, the scream sharper. His body moved before his mind. He rushed to the rubble, lifting with all his strength. The child pulled free, coughing but alive. But behind him, the soldier's cries faded, and the stranger vanished in flame. Daniel turned, horror striking his chest. No, he shouted. The alien girl appeared in the fire, her glowing eyes piercing through the smoke. Every choice has a cost, she said. You saved one and lost two. This is the nature of your kind, always too weak to save everyone. Daniel clenched his fists, his voice shaking. Maybe, but we still try, he shouted back. That's what makes us strong, not weak. The fire died, the world shifting again. Now Daniel stood in darkness, only the alien girl before him. She studied him, her eyes softer, almost questioning. You choose with your heart, even when it breaks you, she said. Her voice lowered, as if speaking to herself. Strange, dangerous. Daniel took a step forward, anger and hope burning together inside him. If this is your challenge, then I'll keep failing and trying again, as many times as it takes. His voice was rough, but steady. That's what being human means. The alien girl's lips curved into a faint smile, the first real smile he had seen. For a moment, she almost looked human, but then the smile faded, her eyes sharp once more. You have passed this stage, she said, but the greatest challenge is yet to come. The darkness cracked, light pouring through like fire breaking glass. Daniel shielded his eyes as the world dissolved around him again. The last thing he heard was her whisper, carried like a secret through the light. Do not make me believe in you, Daniel, unless you are ready to bear the weight of it. Clash of Worlds. The light faded, and Daniel found himself back in the quiet field. His body ached from the trials. His skin burned with cuts that felt too real. He dropped to the ground, his chest rising and falling like he had run for miles. The night sky stretched above, calm and endless, but Daniel knew peace was an illusion. The alien girl stood before him, silent, her eyes locked on his face. Something about her was different now. She no longer looked like a cold judge, but like someone carrying a storm inside. You endure, she said softly, almost to herself. You break, but you stand again. Before Daniel could answer, the air cracked with thunder. A sharp beam of light struck the ground, burning the grass into ash. Daniel shielded his eyes, his heart leaping with fear. Another ship descended, larger, darker, sharper than hers. Its surface gleamed black, covered in jagged marks like scars. The ground trembled under its weight. From its side, a group of tall figures stepped out. Their bodies were harder, their armor jagged like blades. Their glowing eyes carried no warmth, only hunger. They looked at Daniel as if he was less than an insect. One of them raised his hand, pointing directly at the alien girl. You, he said, his voice deep and thunderous. You are not alone in this mission. Why do you waste time with a human? Daniel froze, his chest tight. So it was true. She wasn't the only one. Her people were watching, waiting, judging. The alien girl's face hardened, her calm mask returning. He is part of the test, she said, her voice steady. The leader of the aliens hissed, a sound sharp and cruel. This creature, he spat. He is weak, soft, broken by his own heart. Humanity is unworthy. Daniel clenched his fists, his blood boiling. He wanted to shout, but the alien girl raised her hand, stopping him. She stepped forward, facing her own kind. You do not understand, she said, her voice strong. He is not weak. His weakness is his strength. His failure is his courage. The aliens laughed, their voices echoing like knives. Listen to yourself, the leader sneered. You speak as if you are infected by them. He turned his glowing eyes on Daniel. You are nothing, human. Your kind drowns in feelings. You are fragile toys, easily broken. Daniel felt fear claw at his chest, but anger burned stronger. He stepped forward, his voice rough but loud. Maybe we are fragile, he said. Maybe we break, maybe we fall, but that's why we matter. That's why we keep fighting. He looked directly into the alien's cold eyes. You don't fear our weakness. You fear what we become because of it. The air grew tense, the silence heavy. The leader's face twisted, his voice sharp with fury. You dare speak to me as equal. He raised his hand, energy crackling like fire in his palm. Daniel's heart stopped. This was the end. But then the alien girl stepped between them. Her glowing hand rose, blocking the leader's strike. No, she said firmly. Her voice carried steel, not doubt. You will not harm him. The leader snarled, his eyes narrowing. You betray your people for this animal? The girl's expression did not change, but her words carried fire. I do what the test requires. I do what truth demands. Daniel stared at her, shock and confusion filling his chest. She was protecting him against her own kind. The air vibrated, heavy with the weight of the clash. The other aliens stepped forward, their glowing weapons humming with energy. But the girl's hand lifted higher, her voice cutting through the night. Stand down, she commanded. For the first time, doubt flickered in their eyes. The leader growled but lowered his hand. His gaze shifted from her to Daniel, burning with hatred. This ends only one way, human, he said. Your world will fall, and so will she. With that, the black ship rose back into the sky, its shadow swallowing the stars before vanishing into the distance. The field fell silent again, but the silence was heavier than before. Daniel turned to her, his voice trembling. They were going to kill me, and you stopped them. The alien girl looked at him, her eyes glowing softer than before. You do not understand, she said, her voice low. My people will not forgive this by protecting you. I have already chosen a side. Daniel's chest tightened. What side? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. She stepped closer, her face inches from his. The side that believes in you, she said, her eyes burning with quiet fire. But if I am wrong, Daniel, the cost will be everything. Her words sank deep, heavier than any trial. This was no longer just a test. This was a war. And now, she had tied her fate to his. The choice. The field was still, but Daniel's heart was not. It beat hard in his chest, echoing the words he had just heard. She had chosen his side against her own people, and that meant danger was closing in. The alien girl stood silent, her glowing eyes fixed on the dark sky where the black ship had vanished. Her face was calm, but Daniel could feel the storm inside her. He could see it in the way her hands tightened, in the way her voice shook when she finally spoke. They will return, she said softly. They will not forgive what I have done. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. Why risk it? Why protect me at all? She turned to him slowly, her gaze unreadable. Because in you, I see something my people cannot understand. Her words hung heavy. You feel, you fight, you break but rise again. And her voice cracked for the first time. I want to believe in that. Daniel's breath caught. You believe in me? He asked, confused. Her eyes lowered, the faint glow flickering. I do not know yet. That is why this choice is heavier than any trial. She stepped closer, her presence wrapping around him like the night air. If I stay with you, if I fight for you, then I betray everything I was born for, my family, my people, my world. Her voice lowered to a whisper. But if I leave you, I betray myself. Daniel felt the weight of her words press into his chest. She was not simply an alien testing him anymore. She was being torn apart, caught between duty and something she didn't even have a name for. Something that looked dangerously close to hope. Why me? Daniel asked again, his voice shaking. He needed to know. He needed an answer that made sense. Her eyes lifted, burning into his. Because you are ordinary, she said, her voice firm. And ordinary is what my people cannot control. Ordinary is what they fear. Before Daniel could respond, the ground trembled beneath them. The silver ship, the one she had arrived in, began to pulse with light. Symbols danced across its skin, alive, angry. She froze, her eyes wide. "They are calling me," she whispered. "They want me to choose now." The air grew heavy, the ship glowing brighter. Daniel could feel the pull, dragging at her body, calling her back to her people. Her voice trembled. "If I return, they will erase you. They will erase everything I have seen, everything I feel." Her eyes glistened faintly, light shimmering inside like tears. "If I stay, then I fight against my own blood, and I may never see my world again." Daniel's chest tightened, his breath sharp. He realized now, the test was no longer his alone. It was hers as well. Her people demanded loyalty, but her heart whispered something else. And now, she was asking him for the answer she could not find on her own. Her hand reached out, glowing softly. "If I stay, if I fight for you, will you fight for me?" Her voice carried a strange mix of strength and desperation. The question struck Daniel deeper than any trial before. He stared at her, his mind spinning. Could he trust her? Could he trust a being who had shown him death, who belonged to the same people ready to burn his world? Or had she truly changed, choosing him in a way that went against everything she knew? The silence stretched, heavy as stone. Daniel's hand shook, his throat tight. He looked at her, this strange, beautiful, terrifying girl from the stars, and he saw the truth. She was not invincible, not untouchable. She was fragile in a way her people could never admit. Fragile because she had dared to care. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "If you stay," he said, "I'll fight with you. No matter what comes, no matter how impossible." Her eyes widened, glowing brighter. "But understand this," Daniel added, his voice sharper. "If you betray me, if you turn on my people, I won't forgive you." For a moment, neither moved, the world holding its breath. Then, slowly, her hand lowered. Her lips curved into a faint, almost human smile. "Then the choice is made," she whispered. "I will not leave. I will not return to them. From this moment on, my fate is tied to yours." The silver ship screamed in protest, its light flickering violently. The ground shook, symbols flashing across the field like fire. But the alien girl did not move. She turned her back on the ship, her glowing eyes never leaving Daniel's. Behind them, the vessel shuddered, then lifted into the sky without her. Its light faded into the stars, leaving only silence. Daniel exhaled, his body trembling. "You just gave up everything," he whispered. She nodded, her face calm, but her eyes storming. "Yes," she said, "and now there is no going back." Daniel felt the weight of her choice settle over him. For the first time, he understood this was no longer just a test of humanity. It was a war of belief, a war where she had chosen him as her ally. And if they failed, they would both fall together. The answer: the night was silent, but the silence was not peace. The silver ship was gone. The black sky stretched empty above. Yet Daniel felt the weight of 100 unseen eyes watching. He knew her people were not finished, not after what she had done. The alien girl stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Her glowing eyes flickered with fire, but Daniel could see the cracks. She had turned her back on everything she knew. Now, she was bound to a world that was not hers, bound to him. "Do you regret it?" Daniel asked quietly. Her head turned, her silver hair shifting in the wind. "No," she said, her voice steady. "But my choice has started a storm, and storms do not forgive." Daniel swallowed, his throat dry. "What happens now?" Her eyes softened, but her words were heavy. "Now we fight together." Before Daniel could answer, the air split open with a tearing sound. A circle of light formed above them, swirling like a black sun. From it, ships poured through, black and sharp, their surfaces glowing with cruel fire. They filled the sky like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the stars. Daniel's breath caught, his knees weak. "This is war," he whispered. The alien girl nodded, her voice calm but grim. "They have come to erase me, and to erase you." The ground shook as one of the ships descended. Its shadow swallowed the field. Its engines roared like thunder. Daniel stumbled back, fear surging through him. The girl stepped forward, her body glowing brighter, her voice carrying like a blade. "You cannot take him," she shouted into the night. "You cannot take this world." A booming laugh echoed from the ship, the same deep voice of the alien leader who had faced them before. "You defy us for this fragile animal," he mocked. "You think his kind will save you?" The girl raised her chin, her glowing eyes fierce. "No," she said, "I think his kind will save us all." Daniel's heart thudded in his chest. He had never felt smaller, standing before ships that could tear his world apart. But her words struck something inside him. For the first time, he realized she was not only protecting him, she was betting everything, her life, her people's judgment, her world's future, on humanity, on him. The ship's weapons glowed, energy building. The leader's voice thundered. "Then you will die with your human." The alien girl raised her hand, light exploding from her body. A shield of energy spread across the field, glowing like fire. The first blast struck, shaking the ground, but the shield held. Daniel shielded his eyes, his body trembling from the force. She stood unmoving, her voice steady. "Daniel," she said, "this is not my fight anymore. It is yours." Daniel's head snapped toward her. "What? I can't fight them." Her eyes locked onto his, glowing brighter. "You already are. Every choice you make, every word you speak, that is your weapon." Her voice dropped lower, softer. "You made me believe. Now make them believe." Daniel's chest tightened, fear and fire colliding inside him. He stepped forward, past her glowing shield. His voice shook, but he forced it louder. "You think we're weak," he shouted to the black sky. "You think feelings make us fragile, but feelings are what make us human. Feelings are what make us strong." He pointed at the endless swarm above. "You fight to control, we fight to protect, and that's why you'll never break us." For a heartbeat, the sky held still. Then the alien laughter returned, sharp and cruel. "You speak with fire, human, but fire dies." The ships moved closer, their weapons glowing brighter. Daniel clenched his fists, his body trembling, but he stood firm. He would not run. Not now, not ever. The alien girl's light flared brighter, her shield burning like a star. She looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "Then let us burn together." The sky erupted in light as the ships fired again. The shield cracked, the ground split, the night exploded in fire and sound. Daniel's body was thrown back, his vision spinning. Through the chaos, he saw her standing strong, her eyes blazing like suns. And then silence. Smoke filled the air, the ground scorched, the stars hidden. Daniel coughed, dragging himself to his knees. The alien girl was still standing, but barely, her body glowing faint and broken. Her voice reached him, soft as a whisper. "This is not the end," she said. Her glowing eyes locked onto his one last time. "It is only the beginning." And then, from the sky above, another voice spoke, deeper, darker, colder than all the rest. A voice that made even her tremble. "Then let the real war begin." The swarm of ships spread across the heavens, blotting out every star. Daniel's heart froze. The test was over. The war had begun.